Rohan's Corner, that show's awesome, awesome, it's so awesome, oh so awesome, awesome, awesome. Doesn't Rohan's Corner collect GoBots? That would be really lame. One of the many robot franchises on his show. He treats them all the same. Awesome. Awesome, awesome. He's got a wall of fame. Awesome.
Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Rohan's Corner. Thank you to my friends in the studio, as always, for the lovely introduction. This week we are discussing Transformers Rise of the Beasts. Tell me this, do we have the concept of a Barbie movie without Barbie and Ken as the main characters? Do we have the concept of a Thomas the Tank Engine movie where we focus on Sir Topham Hatt and the drivers and firemen instead of the engines? No, then why do we have Transformers live action movies where the Transformers are not the center of the focus? It really does beg a belief. Anywho, this week's episode contains spoilers about Rise of the Beast. It's been out for about 2 months now, so if you haven't seen it, then, well, go see it. But also, spoilers in this video from Rohan, and so if you want to avoid spoilers, if you haven't seen it, switch off for 5 minutes. Go and watch part of the show again. Go and watch another Rohan's Corner. But what I wanted to talk to you about this week was the Transformers from Rise of the Beasts and go in depth on their characters. So let's kick it off with the Autobots and the fearless leader, Optimus Prime. Or should we call him a Predator from the movies Predator and Predators? Because he's more like a Terminator in this film than he is a sentimental, sentient being from the planet Cybertron. He doesn't have the humble or the emotional capacity that we've seen from him in the past, from Generation 1, from other Transformers lines. Because this version of Optimus Prime that's been building in the live-action movies now for some time is only focused on death and pillaging. He has no sentimentality for humans, or for anybody else for that matter, with the exception of Bumblebee and his home planet of Cybertron. It has been growing in this franchise for some time, since he took the face off of the Fallen, and similarly deprived Sentinel Prime in the vicious way in which he did. Sure, Lockdown and Scourge didn't deserve a hero's death, but there's something wholly sadistic about this version of Prime that's made even clearer in the deleted scenes from Rise of the Beasts. What I'm talking about is specifically the scene at the beginning of the movie with Transit, disguised as a bus, where Prime stalks, hunts down, and massacres Transit. Even in his own monologue over the whole scene, Prime calls himself a hunter. This is not my Prime. This is a selfish, bloodthirsty, little or no morality Prime, with a distinct lack of intelligence in my humble opinion. So, I'm not a fan. Moving on to Bumblebee. Let's get this out of the way, shall we? Bumblebee has a bit part role in Rise of the Beast, for which I am super happy about. One of my favourite parts is when he's impaled and killed by Scourge. Except, of course, he's not dead, is he? We all are flippantly aware that he's going to come back to life because they go and put him on this energon pile or whatever it is. Still, for what scenes he is in, he is thoroughly forgettable and characterless, always. And even though it was less than a month ago that I saw the movie, I couldn't even tell you if he speaks with his normal voice or with his radio nonsense voice. I think it was a normal voice, but whatever he said was, well, pants, let's be honest. Moving on to the star of the show, Mirage. To say that I was skeptical about a 911 Porsche being used for the Mirage character would be an understatement. To say that I was pleased about someone like Pete Davidson, who I'd never heard of before the announcement that he was going to play Mirage, come on and take on this role, especially after some quick research showed what kind of person Pete is, looking like an uncouth, unfunny, perfect for baby movies character. However, but clearly Mirage is the standout character in this movie, the standout transformer of Rise of the Beast. He brings a Swindle-like charm to the role, some clever wit, and also some clever lines mixed in with some corny ones that give some real emotion to the way in which we saw Bumblebee, but amps it up maybe another 5 or 10 levels with the Noah character, especially with regards to his brother. I also have to praise Pete's performance because he didn't make me cringe like I thought he would. It was a good marriage between the character and the vocal aspect. And using Hound's hologram's capability in the movie was excellent. It really made me grin. However, I do wish Hound was there to use it himself. At the end, sacrificing himself, showing real character, unlike many of the other Transformers we're going to discuss today, was absolutely standout for me. Next, moving on to RC. Well, I don't really know what to say. She was there. She was pink. She was more G1-esque than we've ever seen her in the live-action movies before, except for maybe the Bumblebee scene on Cybertron. She was more like that rendition of RC. If I had to try and think of some of her lines, I can't recall any of them. Yes, she was, in fact, a female Genericon, in my humble opinion, the first of many in this film, unfortunately. Speaking of Genericons, we got Wheeljack, or should we call him Pablo? Well, they could have named him Wheeljack, they could have named him anything. He could have been Towline, Trailbreaker, Rust Stop, or even the GoBot Vanguard. Nobody would have batted an eyelid. Another wholly throwaway character whose only memorable moments are speaking Spanish in a truly forgettable and unfunny exchange with Noah, and having stupidly big glasses that make him look like a dork. Genericon. However, the biggest Genericon has to be Stratosphere. Now, I'm all for having more Transformers in a Transformers movie. Obviously, I made that point at the beginning. This film franchise should be about Transformers. But when you bring them in to ferry you from point A to B, when you have so few bots to begin with, it just beggars belief. I mean, Transformers can transform. All of the Autobots transform into vehicles that can go from A to B. Yes, it was a long distance. It may have taken longer. Or bring back a different character that could have sit and fit the part better. They tried to give him some character. They tried to make him an old man, a clapped out jet plane personality. But let's be honest, that was stolen straight from Jetfire, who was already on Earth at this time, if you think about the continuity, if they bothered to actually have any continuity in these live action movies. And they could have used Jetfire. It would have made logical sense. But no, let's add another Genericon in here who doesn't even fight in the final showdown scene where we have 1,000 Predacons, Terracons, Decepticons, whatever you want to call them, evil baddies to one and their favor, and it's just a shameless plug. Even John DiMaggio can't do anything to save this character. It's that poor. And I would have had less negativity if they'd had 2 more scenes with him in to actually say something or do something. It's a shame. Next, we move on to the Maximals, and we start with 2 more Genericons. You would be forgiven for not knowing who Cheetor and Rhinox are if you're not a Beast Wars fan or have not seen any element of Beast machines, because in this movie, Rise of the Beasts, you would have no concept about who these characters are. They don't get introduced. They don't have any lines. They don't get any screen time. It will just be as clueless as coming in from the beginning of the movie to the end. They're just there. They have a combined dialogue of about 3 words and are truly forgettable. I mean, I can't actually remember, and I only saw the movie a month ago, anything that Rhinox does in this movie. Cheetor, I remember 2 things. Yes, they're there, but they're not. There's a good scene that's cut out of the movie where they get a chance to look like they're doing something, look like they're bad guys hunting down Noah and Elena, only for it to flip and show that they could be good guys. Why that scene was cut, I really don't know. The end final showdown scene is so bloated and long that they could have cut half of that down, especially considering how it is pretty much identical to all of the other live action movie endings, in the sense that we have this big final showdown fight, Prime kills the leader of the bad guys, and whoop-de-doo, with loads and loads of evil characters swarming around and creating havoc and all the Autobots fighting back. Great. That final scene was far too long, in my humble opinion.
Okay, so that's the end of part 1 of my Rise of the Beast Transformers overview. Unfortunately, I just have too much content, just like when I did my Beast War Machines video, to fit into 1 episode. So I'm splitting this into 2, and you can see all the rest of the characters next week. Thank you for joining me. Back to the studio.
Transformers, Rohans in disguise.